This picture is from the Badlands in South Dakota, and you can see the definite lines in that rock formation. You know, evolutionists treat rock layers as long ages of history. Therefore, something that is buried at the bottom, they conclude is something that is much, much older than something that is buried at the top, even millions of years. This is their historical record that they're trying to claim. Now, a British man by the name of Charles Lyell is the one that popularized this idea. It's called uniformitarianism. Now, it's critical to understand something about Lyell. Okay? He wrote in a letter that he was trying to free the sciences from Moses. That was his goal. We document this in the DVD. What is freeing the sciences from Moses? It's freeing people from the Old Testament. Okay? Actually, from the Torah, to be more precise. Okay? He has a bias against that, and he is now trying to. And how do you free people from the Torah? Well, you claim the history is not true, and there you have it. Now, if you take this idea, and so he thought these layers, represent millions and millions of years. Now, if you take his idea that each one of those layers is a vast amount of times, what would you conclude if you look at the Grand Canyon? I mean, you see all the layers there. It's impossible to count all the strata. It's just too grand, okay? But if you believe each one of those layers represents a big, vast amount of time, you're going to look at that and go, oh man, we're billions of years old. So understanding uniformitarianism is critical to understanding evolution, because Darwin leaned heavily on Lyell to give himself enough time for his evolutionary, basically for his evolutionary theory to go forward. He needed millions and billions of years for slow, gradual processes. The two are inextricable. They're tied together. Now, is there evidence against the rock layers being an accurate column of history? Many of you have probably seen this. In May of 1980, or heard this, Mount St. Helens erupted in the state of Washington. This was one of the most documented geological events because the mountain was swelling beforehand, so everyone knew it was going to blow. And so geologists from around the world came and set up cameras, and they're like, we're going to watch this thing happen. And when it erupted, it provided geology in real time. Geologists didn't have to speculate on what might have happened. They saw the whole show. They just sat back and nature gave the lesson. Now, this cliff face was created at 3 different events stemming from Mount St. Helens. There's a person at the bottom for scale, so you can see. Now, what we're interested in is this 20-foot section that's highlighted. All right? The highlight is important because you see all the layers there. You see those things in the rock. If you were just going to come up there and you had Lyell's idea of uniformitarianism, and that all these things take a long time, you're like, wow, that's thousands, hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of years old to create all those layers. The problem with that is on June 12, 1980, that 20 feet was deposited in only 3 hours. Just 3 hours. Okay, so the concept that layers mean huge, vast amount of time, it just doesn't work. All right, it doesn't mean that. We have evidence of that. Now, even the fine micro layers, and each of those layers were thought to take, maybe like a year to form. Those paper-thin layers you see? The idea is 6 months or a year, it would take that to form. Yet 20 feet of that stuff happened in 3 hours. So again, the evidence doesn't fit their model when you actually can see something from the beginning to the end. And that's the key. Can we witness something start and witness it finish? And when you can do that, you can figure it out. But what's happening is they're not witnessing how anything began. They're just saying this is how it came. But how do we know that for sure? Now, what's interesting is in laboratory experiments, when air and water is circulated with sediment and mud and dirt, and it settles, they create the same kind of micro-layering. So again, when you see layers in nature, the point is it doesn't necessarily mean millions and billions of years. All it is circumstance. What happens here is as water is being circulated with the sediment, these little rocks are tumbling over each other, and they're just simply segregating each other on size and weight. It's just not that big of a deal. They just segregate each other as they're tumbling around. Now, when you look at all of the fossil layers and all the layers that is found all around the globe, what could have created the circumstance where you have dirt, mud, and water all just churning around and resettling? Noah's flood. The Bible actually explains the fossil layers. It explains the geological layers very, very well.